There are colonies of hippies springing up in most American cities. They represent a new form of social rebellion.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Acid was the medium through which the wavelength travels.
There's nothing grown up or sophisticated in taking an LSD trip at all. They're just being complete fools.
I couldn't see anything except colors, and I thought, well, you know, this is supposed to be reality, but it wasn't. It wasn't anything.
You can't put a trip down on film. I mean, colors do look pretty, but there's so much more.
I'm loving that music. Hey, welcome, jerks. Welcome back. I see a lot of stuff happen in the Karen Reed. Just like another Attorney Betterow prediction comes true. Bev basically quoted Betterow. You know what happened. Dr. Marie Russell is going to be allowed to testify in the dog bites and the Karen Reed defense. It's a big day for us. Not going to be covering that right now, though, because I got a special guest, someone I wanted to get up on the show. And I want to thank all of you. I know there's a lot going on today, and there's some other shows, like Melanie Little is live right now. I hope everyone's getting their fill there. It's I was watching earlier, love watching her. But tonight, we're going to change it up a little bit. We've got somebody here who is a filmmaker. He's been on, one of the big movies I saw was White Boy. There's been two versions. There was like the docudrama, like, you know, actors. And then there was the documentary that was on Netflix. It was a top 20, not just documentary, top 20 all over Netflix when it came out for a few weeks. I saw it called White Boy. And he's also put out this new one that we just played a promo clip from called the Psychedelic Revolution, the secret history of the LSD trade, which I'm interested in speaking to him about. I've been following him for quite a while. He's a author, a journalist, and a filmmaker. And he's also an ex-convict. He spent decades in prison for nonviolent. Well, I don't even want to call them crimes because I don't think they are crimes. He should have never been in prison. And he did a lot of time. And what I like about him, especially, is he got such a raw deal, but he kept his positivity. He made the best of it. One of the things he did, which, you know, is probably the best thing about being in prison, is he started to interview some of the other prisoners and convicts and starting telling their stories. And it's always a fine line, obviously, to tell those stories. But you could see a future for some prisoners and convicts through YouTube, writing screenplays, writing books, journalism. You see it a lot with the mob guys and even like the former DEA guys and the cops. They're like some of the most popular people that we have on YouTube. Some of them have been on the show, and I'm wicked excited to have him on the show because he's a real journalist and he's done a lot of good work. And his website, I want you to check out guerrillaconvict.com. You can see some of the books he's written. And if you can, check out his movie, The Secret History of the LSD Trade. That one is the new one, Psychedelic Revolution. Or check out White Boy. He's got a bunch of them. Yeah, he's a California guy, I believe. And we mentioned Melanie Little. She may be interested in checking this out because I think he might have, this guest, I haven't said his name yet. I think he might have sold some acid at Dead shows, Grateful Dead shows. So we're tying that, we're weaving that back in. I wonder... Let's bring him up. I've already talked him up. And he also tried to fake his death at one point, which is crazy, to get out of his prison sentence. And he was like on the top, whatever it is, top 20 most wanted from the U.S. Marshals for nothing. Someone who should never have been in prison. He's telling good stories. I like what he does. And he's gotten a little trouble. You can see there's a story in Vice right now about some legal trouble he's recently got into again. Welcome to the show. It's my pleasure. Mr. Positivity. I get inspiration from just following him on Facebook. Like, if you're not into this psychedelic stuff or even the true crime stuff, you might just want to follow this guest, Seth Ferranti. because he'll pump you up, especially if you're a creator, comedian, musician, whatever you're doing out there. He will get you pumped up because we all get our ups and downs and our funks, and we're dealing with the public. And so, welcome to the show, Seth Ferranti. Did I say your name right? Ferranti?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Outlaw filmmaker. How did you get here? How did you become an outlaw filmmaker? Like, this is wild. Tell us your story, because I know a lot of people know it. I know some of it. I want to hear you tell it on this show. How did you get in prison? What happened to you?
Yeah, well, I'm 54, so I came up in the 80s, pre-internet. It was kind of a different world. And when I kind of first came of age as a teenager, that was like, the war on drugs, just say no, this is your brain on drugs era with Nancy Reagan and all that. So looking back, it was a pretty scary time because I've always just been a weed guy. I started smoking cannabis at 13. By 15, 16, I was getting into psychedelics. And but back then it was a scary time because you got to think back then, 800,000 people were getting arrested a year for cannabis. And I've always argued with people because they say, oh, I don't smoke weed. It makes me paranoid. The only reason you were paranoid is because 800,000 people were getting arrested a year. If 800,000 people were getting arrested a year for avocados, every time you cut an avocado open, you would be paranoid. So, I like to always tell people that because I think there's like a lot of misconceptions about cannabis, and what its uses are. But I was a believer early on, call me before my time, trailblazer, whatever. But, I came into this culture. Back then we called it the counterculture. I don't know what they call it now. I guess cannabis is mainstream, but I got into like the counterculture. I got into the Grateful Dead, and by the time I was 17, 18 years old, I was supplying 15 colleges in 5 states on the East Coast. That's kind of like what the Fed said, like in all the newspaper articles and stuff about me. But I don't know. I never, even at the time, I never considered myself a criminal. I never considered myself like, the word drug dealer. I was an outlaw. I broke laws that I thought were wrong. I've always believed that these substances, speaking of cannabis and psychedelics, have spiritual, therapeutical, and medicinal value. And I believe that people have the right, to use them if they wanted. It didn't hurt. I made some money. I'm not going to lie and say, I was just, giving drugs away. I made money on it too, but, I did it because I wanted to do it because I thought it was on the side of right. And that eventually led to, I got indicted in 1991. Because if you remember the end of the 80s, that was like the crack era. And they made those mandatory minimum sentence and they just started hammering all the, black males, like from the inner cities, like $50 worth of crack, and they're getting like 5 years. But then I was in that first week. Then they got a lot of pushback. There was a lot of pushback because they're saying these laws are racist, which, in retrospect, we all know they were racist. But there was a lot of pushback. So then like the DEA and the prosecutors, they say, no, we're going out to the suburbs. So I was in that first wave, 91, when they started the feds under these new mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines that were enacted in 87. I hit that first wave and I was young, man. I was 20 years old.
Wow.
I was first time nonviolent offender. I grew up in the suburbs. I was basically a military brat. My case was out of Virginia, but I grew up in California. I lived overseas. My dad was stationed over there. So this whole criminal, I knew I was an outlaw. I knew I was doing stuff wrong, or against the laws or whatever. But I just had no idea, like they came, like I ended up, I got 25-year sentence as a 22-year-old.
That's crazy. 25-year sentence, and that's federal, where you don't get.
Yeah, I did 21. I did 21 straight years. I was in from 93 to 2015.
Oh, from age 20. Basically, that's your whole youth. Just it's unbelievable. What were the 15 colleges? Like, what do you know some of the colleges that you were?
Yeah, so I was in Northern Virginia, so I hit like James Madison University, George Mason, Radford, Virginia Tech, Eastern Kentucky University, University of Kentucky, West Virginia University, which in Morgantown, which was like a real big party spot. That was like one of my main spots. Penn State College, plus the satellites, like where all the sophomores and freshmen would be. They got like 7 satellite, and I knew people. These are all people I went to high school with, the colleges they went to, and then like into Maryland, University of Maryland, and I would basically I would just drive a circle. It was kind of like have drugs, will travel, and that was my thing. And I don't know. To me, that was freedom. I don't know. To the law and to the DEA and the government and all that stuff. I was like this evil, nefarious. They made me out like I'm John Gotti in the suburbs or something. But I mean, I was young. I would say at the time, I mean, I was making good money. I could make profit like 20 grand a month sometimes, and we're talking like late 80s. So I'm not going to say I wasn't making money, but I was young, man, and I had a little run, man. Maybe I had like maybe 9 months where I was kind of like doing that. Everything else, so that was like the build up to get to that point. So I had like a little 9-month run. You know what? I made maybe like 180,000, and yeah. Then I got hit, man. I got 25. I made matters worse because I took off. I was like, especially back then when the feds come to you, they're like, they come with like all this time, like they're talking about. I was like looking at 20 to life. And I'm like, how could I be looking at 20 to life? Like, I'm from the suburbs. I'm like a first-time nonviolent offender. This is like marijuana and LSD. No guns, all college kids, all people from good families. And, so I couldn't really believe that time. So I didn't want to do it. So I was like, I took off. I fled. I faked my suicide on the Potomac River. And I took off because I had a little money. I didn't have 180,000, but I had a little bit of money. So I fled. I absconded, and then I made it seem like I jumped in the water. I remember reading the articles, like in the Metro, the Washington Post. Like people always committed suicide there at Great Falls on the Potomac River. It's a national park, like right outside DC in Northern Virginia. People hike there, people kayak there. They got like class 5 rapids. But I always remember reading. Like people commit suicide, they would jump in the water because there's like a couple of lakes off the cliffs. If you jump in the water, it's class 5 rapids, so you're not going to be able to swim. And then there's a lot of rocks, so it's a pretty surefire way to kill yourself, and pretty quick. So I staged it on the banks of the Potomac River, and then I took off. But I found out later, a couple of weeks later, I went out to LA, and about 2 weeks later, because I was kind of under the thing like, if Seth Ferranti is dead, then like all this goes away, and then I can be whoever. That was kind of like my thing. After 7 years, I'll be declared legally dead. But I made one mistake. Like I thought I was a genius at 20 years old, but really, when you're young, you're really not. And I staged the suicide on the wrong side of the dam. They have dams on the rivers, to going out to the Atlantic Ocean. Because they got a bunch of bridges and stuff going to DC. So they dragged the river for 2 weeks, the park police, and they always found bodies there, and they didn't find a body there at that dam. So the prosecutors declared the suicide a hoax and made me U.S. Marshals top 15 most wanted for like, I don't know, some crazy reason. Like I say, no guns, no violence. They just made me out like like I don't know who they thought I was, but it was pretty crazy. It was like one of those, like when you're growing up and they always talk about your positive potential, your positive potential. Once you get into the criminal justice system, it's all about your negative potential.
Right. How did they catch you from there? Like when you hoaxed your death, where did you go after that? And how long did it take?
Well, I went out to LA first. I was staying out in LA. Like I said, I had a little bit of money, but I was like, I lived like a rock star. I was a drug dealer, outlaw. So I, never been good with money. I just spend money like crazy. But so I had a little bit of money, but I blew it all like in 6 months. And then I went back to work, man. I went back to Texas. I hooked up with the Mexican guys I was getting the brick weed from, and I started selling weed in Texas, working out of restaurants. I worked as a cook when I was a fugitive, but I was a fugitive for 2 years. Eventually, I ended up going up to Missouri, and I started bringing weed up there, and where you can make a little bit of more money. So I was making a profit, and yeah, I was doing that. It kind of got. I don't know if being a fugitive is kind of tough because you can't be who you are. So I'm doing that, like becoming that weed dealer again and doing that and smuggling and stuff. I don't whatever it is about that stuff. I like that stuff. I can't lie. I've been doing it my whole life. But I kind of got my mojo back a little, even though like I was known as Christopher Haas. Nobody knew my real name, but I was just set up in Missouri, another little, weed distribution system that, it wasn't that long, maybe like another probably 7, 8, 9 months. And, it's the height of the war on drugs. And I'm a top 15 most wanted fugitive, which I don't even know. And I'm still selling weed. So, I mean, I was bound to get caught. The odds were stacked against me. And eventually, like after 2 years, I got caught. They matched my prints. I got out of it, but then they sent the multi-jurisdictional U.S. Marshals Task Force, like four. Like I don't know how they divide it. Like every 4 and 6 states, they got their own little task force. So they sick that task force on me, and they got me like within I think like couple days. And then like I said, I got extradited back to Virginia, got sentenced to 25 years, and didn't see the free world again until 2015. And this was like
Holy
October 1993 when I got caught.
Holy shit. So we're basically we grew up like the same time, like exactly the same. Like we're like the same age. So all this stuff happened and it's just wild. I'm thinking about like all those years that you missed. Like you were in jail on like September 11th. Like, I mean, that must have been wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in Fort Dix. in New Jersey, a low security federal prison in New Jersey.
Crazy.
I remember that.
Fort Dix. Wow. And where were some of the other prisons that you had to stay?
So I started out at FCI Manchester. It's a medium security prison in Kentucky. Then I went to Beckley, West Virginia, a medium security prison in Beckley. Then I went to Ferreton, a medium security prison in New Jersey. Then I went to FCI Gilmer, a medium security in Gilmer. And then my level dropped, like I'd been in 12 years at that point. So then I went down to Fort Dix, FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey, a low security prison. Then I transferred to Loretto in Pennsylvania, a low security prison. And then I ended up in Forest City, Arkansas, a low security prison.
Now, those federal prisons, that's a lot. Were any of those privatized, or most of them, or were they?
No, I was never in a private. Maybe like some of the holdovers I was in, like in transit, I might have been in some private prisons. But yeah, no, those were like all federal.
And
but I started hearing about, once I was in probably 5 years, I started hearing about the private prisons, and people would come in that had been in them and stuff like that.
And what were the conditions like of the places that you were in?
I was in a lot of new, I came in when they had that prison boom. So I think when Clinton first got elected, like 94, I think there was like 50 federal prisons. But, but then they built a ton during his administration, like his 8 years. I think they built like 50 or 60, so like FCI Manchester was pretty much a brand new prison. So it was nice. Kind of like college campus like, but obviously, razor wire, lock-in cells and stuff like that. And then Beckley was a brand new prison.
Beckley, where was that? Like what state?
In West Virginia. West Virginia.
Okay. So you're all in the Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee area?
Yeah, they call it like the Mid-Atlantic region.
Okay.
And then like Ferreton was an older prison, but it was still pretty nice. And then Gilmer was brand new. Fort Dix is an old military base. They converted part of the military base, like the barracks, into a low security prison. Loretto in Pennsylvania was an old seminary that they converted into a prison. It had like 6-man rooms and stuff, like kind of dorm like. And then Forest City was a pretty much brand new prison, not that old, and it had like cubicles and stuff. Yeah, so I'd say most of the conditions. I really like the places like Fort Dix was probably, older, but I don't know. That was probably like the best. If all prisons suck, but
Yeah, definitely. When one of the things about the acid trade, I know you have this about the secret history of the LSD trade. I always wonder about it today because, like, when I was a kid, the Grateful Dead or later on, like Fish would come to town, and then everyone at the high school or the college locally, all the friends, they'd all have acid from those concerts. It was like a drug distribution thing. It seemed like that would happen. Is that reality? Like, was there a lot of like real business happening at those types of events?
oh yeah, I used to go. So this was kind of my MO back then in the late '80s. Uh, so I would go to the shows to get the acid
Yeah.
because you could go to the show, but I would bring because ever since the late '80s, I grew up in Southern California, so I always knew about like Humboldt Bud, like Emerald Triangle and stuff like that ever since I was a kid. And I had homies like out in San Francisco, so I would get like in the fall at harvest time, I would get like the good, like we called it kind bud back then, the
Yeah.
good outdoor. I would get that scent, and I also had some connections in Kentucky where they grew southeastern Kentucky. They grew some really good outdoor weed, so I would buy that weed and I would take that to the shows to basically like vend, and then I would buy the acid and take it back to the colleges.
Wow.
That was kind of like my thing. Yeah.
That's
So
how
I
you
mean,
got
it
it
was
too.
it was literally like sometimes back then. I mean, I wouldn't say open air drug markets, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I was in this one show in Ohio somewhere, and we knew the scalpers, so we would always buy, all the drug dealers we would buy from the scalpers, all the hustlers, and we got in a box, right, and it was like super exclusive, but just like a box, but it was like back then, it was like the late '80s, so like people were smoking in there, but it was like crazy. It was just like all the hustlers were in this box, and everybody was just trying to like one up each other, like, oh, here I got this Moroccan hash, or oh, I got this Maui Wowie, or oh, I got this Humboldt Bud, or I got this Kentucky, just like drug wise, it was like crazy, because it was all, I guess the scalper did it on purpose, or he made it like a little thing. And just to kind of, set the scene for you. But like totally, like you couldn't even imagine that today, dude. Like
Yeah.
think like a private box, like in a state, not like a big stadium, but like a 20, 30,000 seater. And everybody's just in there smoking, doing drugs. It's like all cloudy. Like you could never do that today.
No, it's a
So
different,
that
different
just tells
world.
you how different the '80s were.
Yeah. Like I could remember the deals. It's so funny that you said you would get the LSD at those concerts too. It's it's weird. I bet there were certain people that, because I want to ask you, like, do you think there's still like an LSD trade like that? Because I'm older, I don't hear about it. It seems like there's other drugs people are more gravitate towards. Is
Oh
there
yeah,
still
man.
like
There's
a
so
big
many
LSD
designer
trade?
drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many designer drugs. I mean, MDMA. Um, I think MDMA is way bigger than LSD.
Yeah, that kind
You
of
know, when
took
I was
over
growing
too.
up, MDMA was still like a European thing, it seemed like in the '80s, but now it seems like the MDMA is way bigger, than the LSD. And then also like ketamine, and then like all those designer drugs like 2CB. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that trip, but a lot of people, I was at a lot of shows last summer at the Spear, Dead and Company. Yeah, it seems like more people do like and I would trip. I would trip on acid and smoke. That they would call me straight edge when I was there
Do
because
you think
all I
do you
do is
think it's
smoke weed
about
and
the
take acid.
supply? Like today, do you think it's about the lack of supply of LSD or the people just don't want it?
No, I think I mean it's a powerful drug, man. It lasts a long time. I don't think I mean you're investing 8 to 10 hours when you take a trip of LSD.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If it's like
Yeah, I
100
do.
mics or more, so and you're investing a lot of time. So I think people are looking for quicker, shorter. I think everything now is like quicker, shorter. I mean, think about it in the '80s. You had to like actually go someplace to like figure out, who was playing and to find a cool scene or find the cool people. Now you just go on the internet, it tells you where to go, or you can just find them on the internet. So it's like, it's totally, everything's way easier now and quicker, faster.
True. On everything. Yeah, that's so true. We've sped up, technology has sped us up. It's funny because that drug war just got crazy in the late 80s, early 90s, and so did violence. So it's like the more they ratcheted up, the worse everything got. It's like that was a wild time. There was a lot of violence back then. But in the LSD trade, there really wasn't, was there? I mean, I never heard of any real violence in that trade like other drugs.
No, it's even like it's how like even how the like the feds and DEA, like their terminology, right? So like even when they have these LSD rings, or these cannabis rings, or these ones that are kind of connected to the Grateful Dead, a lot of times they call them families because they're not even criminal organizations. It's more like families. It's just like a group of outlaws. Not even bad people. They're not even really committing crime. Besides, the law says that LSD and cannabis, and psychedelics are illegal. So I mean, it was always kind of, and I'd say a lot of that, because of the Grateful Dead, the hippies, like everything they tried to start in the late '60s, what they succeeded in, or a lot of them, like the generation older than us. I talked to a lot of them, and they feel like they failed, but really, through the Grateful Dead, I mean, that whole culture, I mean, really has been strong. And if I think of cannabis and psychedelic culture, it's basically like Grateful Dead '60s hippie culture. And
Absolutely.
it's influenced a lot of stuff. You can look at that in tie dye. You can even look at that like computers, and the internet and all that stuff.
Huge, huge. They pale. Well, how do you say that? You're from California, where the Grateful Dead are really from is like the Silicon Valley, right? Palo Alto. They said that right?
Yeah, well, like San Francisco, below San
Yeah,
Francisco, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the heart of it. It's
Yeah.
same thing. Open
Yeah,
source.
all the same area.
It's interesting. It really is. That past history, which you've been covering. I mean, tell us about how you started your journalism, and then we'll talk about like a bunch of your movies, and because you were in jail, I know, and you started like interviewing people, right?
Yeah, so when you go to prison, you need a job. So a lot of times they try to put you in the kitchen or, like some manual labor jobs. I'm a thinker. I'm not like a manual labor type of dude. But so I was looking for a job. So I got a job in recreation. And I was sports. I played a lot of sports. I was a real big athlete too. Um, Played sports my whole life. And when I got back and when I went to prison, I started playing sports again. So I worked in rec and I would keep like the stats for like the intramural games, because they have like intramural leagues that are in prison just like in college. And I would keep the stats, points, rebounds, stuff like maybe the scorebook. And I was doing stuff like that. And I was compiling the stats and then I would post them up like in the recreation so people could see like the league leaders and stuff like that. And people saw me do that. And people that had come from other institutions, they started asking me, are you going to do a sports paper? Are you going to do a sports paper? And I didn't really know what they meant, but they brought like copies and showed me and like, oh, at the other institution, they had people, they were doing these little write-ups, how you do the stats. And I was like looking at that. And I was taking college classes at the time. Right when I went out, I started taking college classes. They had college classes in Manchester. So through Eastern Kentucky University. So I jumped into that and I was doing, it's mostly liberal arts stuff because, it's not like you can do a lot of stuff. They're coming into the prison. So I was interested in writing anyhow. So I started writing and it just kind of went on from there. I was probably doing that like my first 6 years in prison.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah, and I
amazing.
was getting a lot of compliments like every
Yeah.
different place I went to. And even like staff, they'd be like, oh, you're a really good writer. Were you a reporter on the street? This, that. I'm like, no, I've just taken like journalism college classes, and I'm writing for this. That's kind of my job or my hustle in here. And eventually some people saw it, some guys from Harlem, some black guys from Harlem, because I wrote a lot about the basketball when I was in Fort Dix, like around '99. and they had just come in from this other institution, like a camp, and they said, "Hey," and there was a Harlem dude there named Ron Jordan. I actually did a book about him, and I was writing all these. This dude was like crazy. He was like crazy, like Skip to my dude, like basketball player scoring 60 points a game, all the moves, Harlem, Rucker Park. And I was writing all this. And so these dudes, his homeboys came in and they said, look, our homeboy Kevin Childs just started this magazine. He's in Allenwood called Don Diva. And he's like, why don't you write an article about Ron Jordan for Don Diva? So I was like, okay. So I checked it out. And then like this magazine, Don Diva, it became like huge. You know what I'm saying? Like in hip hop and like in the prisons. So, I started writing for them. And then I started doing they asked me to interview like different gangsters and stuff like that, or prison gang members. And I started just doing interviews like that. So I started out with the magazines. And then there was an editor at Vice when Vice was just starting out, like late 90s, early 2000s, before they got huge. And they were reading my stuff in Don Diva. So then they contacted me and I started writing a column for Vice. It was like in every issue, like in the back called I'm Busted. And yeah, stuff just started to
That was huge. That was like when Vice was like like peak. It was like they were at the top back then. Or coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean I got lucky. I just got affiliated with this Don Diva and Vice. I started writing for both of them. And like I said, dude, back then, I mean, Vice was paying me like $900 a piece, bro, for like 800 words. Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was making good money and I was in prison. And I was getting paid. I started doing features for Penthouse, and I became like Vice's prison correspondent like over the years.
Right. It's amazing how that happened. It's funny how you started.
Yeah, so that's how it all started. And eventually, I got into the books.
Yeah,
I had so much material. Yeah, so around 2005. I had all this material because magazines, print magazines, like a feature, there's only so much space and only so many words. But dudes would like give me these big long interviews and like, dude, I was in prison, so I was like literally writing down. I'm like an old school, reporter, journalist, no recording devices or nothing. And they would give me all these pictures, and I had too much material for the article. So then eventually, once I had a bunch of extra material, I'm like, man, I'm just gonna do a book. So I came up with the Street Legends series, which kind of chronicles like 6 different gangsters from the inner city that kind of been lionized in the lyrical lore of hip hop. And then I put another book that was kind of my biographical tale that I wrote as fiction, like my first 2 years in prison, that I wrote called Prison Stories.
Awesome.
Yeah, then from now, like I think I got like 25 books out now. The majority that I wrote in prison.
And we do have that pin too. If people listen in the chat, they want to check out Seth's books, GorillaConvict.com. We have that pinned in the chat. You can check it out. We're also going to pin up some of his other social media links, like his YouTube channel. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a Facebook. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah just posted his Facebook in the chat, so you can check those out. Follow him if you're not. And recently, the one I saw, the big one was on Netflix that it came out a couple of years ago, but that was like a big deal. It ended up like top 20 2 weeks in a row, like all across Netflix, not just like documentaries. It was a documentary called White Boy about Rick. Tell us about that. How did you get into that one? And you can tell us about some of your other movies too.
Yeah, so like about that same time, we were talking 2005, I started the publishing house, Gorilla Convict, from prison. And I started putting out books, self-publishing books. And, I was in like West Virginia, and there was a lot of guys from Detroit. So I kept hearing about it. Like everybody's talking about this guy, White Boy Rick, White Boy Rick, White Boy Rick. This is like probably like, late 90s, early 2000s. And I heard a lot about him. And I'm like, who is this like white kid, 16-year-old white kid that is like running the inner city cocaine trade in Detroit with all these black gangsters? I was like, it was just, it was weird too. But I knew also that he went to jail real young at 17, and he had a long sentence like me. So there was like some similarities. I had a long sentence. He did. We both went to jail young. So, but you couldn't find him because at that time he was in the Federal Witness Protection Program because he had testified against a bunch of corrupt Detroit police. And even though he had a life sentence. But then, so, like, I was working on this other book about Fat Cat and Pappy Mason, and Fat Cat got busted for this stolen car ring, and Rick was with him in the Fed's witness protection program. They got busted, and I read the article, so he got kicked out. So they went back to Michigan. So then I immediately, through a third party on the street, I started writing them. And I'm like, yo, bro, I'm like, I've been hearing your story for like 10 years. I'm like, I wanted to put them like in my Street Legends series. I'm like, I want to write your book. And then he started telling me all this crazy stuff like, man, I was an informant, I got shot, the police pimped me out. I testified against cops. And it just, from like what dudes were saying in the prison, it was just like a totally different story. And then, and really at that time when I first contacted him, I was writing more like the Billy the Kid, boom, boom, hip hop. I was still kind of romanticizing all that stuff, because I was writing for the people in prison. That was my main audience. That's what they wanted to read. So it took probably about another 5-10 years of me maturing and my writing changing, where I kind of started looking at, victims of the war on drugs. And I kind of started looking at it like a different angle, like as I got like 35 and over. So me and Rick stayed in touch over the times, but then I started writing articles about him and the injustice of his case, because that was a dude like everybody says you're an informant. How do you got a life sentence? How does an informant get a life sentence? How does someone 17 for nonviolent crime get a life sentence? So I started writing about that, and I had one piece of the fix. And I wasn't the only one. There's a lot of people writing about it, so I'm not saying like I didn't break the story or anything. A lot of people wrote about it. But in 2012, I did this story for this website, a drug war website called The Fix, addiction website.
Yep.
And and it went viral when I was still in prison.
There's a
and
lot
so then
of,
I did like a Vice News. Yeah, I did some Vice News. And then I got out and I was doing journalism, and I would just meet a lot of different filmmakers because I would interview them, like true crime stuff, and I would do pieces of advice like Q&As. And I met this one filmmaker out of Cleveland, Ohio, Sean Reck, Transition Studios. He had done like 200 Crime Stopper shows for the networks, won like 8 regional Emmys. And then he put out his first documentary called A Murder in the Park, a really good documentary. And I interviewed him for that, and we started talking. And that was like the same time, probably like, I don't know, 2017 or thereabouts, where the White Boy Rick movie was going into production with Matthew McConaughey, and it was big news. And so this director, Sean Reck, had read some of my articles I shared with him, and he's like, you got access for this? Can we do a story on this? And I was like, I was looking to get into film stuff anyhow. So that was kind of like Sean Reck kind of gave me, I had access to the story and I had wrote about it, and I had access to Rick. I had to convince Rick to do it. But, and I learned, I worked on that whole production as a writer, producer, and kind of Sean Reck took me under his wing. I kind of mentored me in the art of directing and filmmaking and the business aspect. So I got like that 18 months in production. I got like an invaluable, like lesson or mentorship or whatever you want to call it. But that's how the whole white boy thing, came about.
Yeah, that story is like really reveals like the corruption, the political corruption, like tied even to the mayor's office, like with the police and the drug dealing, and this kid, he's the fall guy, like the 17-year-old kid. Like it just, it was a really good documentary. If you haven't seen it, I hope people check it out. There was also a movie called White Boy Rick that you mentioned. What's up with Rick now? Where is he?
Oh, he's in Florida. He'll be between like Miami and Detroit. Yeah, I talk to him. I talk to him every now and then.
Cool. He's doing good.
Yeah. He's doing good, man. He's into like those racing, those cigar boats. A lot of his friends. He doesn't race them, but he goes to the races, stuff like that.
Vanilla Ice is into that. You ever see the videos about him meeting with the cartel with racing? He didn't know they were the cartel members. Do you ever see those videos? Yeah.
No, I don't know if I have them.
Yeah, Vanilla Ice is like huge into it, and it's funny because he basically befriended a bunch of them, these guys with boats, and it turned out they were cartel drug runners, and he didn't realize it until the feds busted him. It's I think it was on, I forget which one of those YouTubers posted it. I got a question here. Someone asked this question. There's like this whole conspiracy thing going. Have you ever heard of Dave McGowan? No? Yes? No? Maybe? The
Yeah,
Laurel
I don't know.
Canyon. Have you heard about this like conspiracy theory about Laurel Canyon? Someone posted about it tonight. I've read about it. It's basically saying that the military intelligence promoted the drug industry, the illegal drug trade, to break up people, break up families. That it was planned. Do you think there's any truth to
Oh, that's
that?
all this stuff that goes back to like Freeway Rick Ross, like the one journalist,
a lot of
that supposedly committed suicide. I can't think of his name. They made a movie about it. Yeah,
Gary
the
Webb.
Contras, Oliver North, all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gary
no,
Webb.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, people were posting about that tonight.
Because I mean, really, crack cocaine totally. Well, I guess first heroin in the 70s, and then crack cocaine in the 80s. I mean, it totally wrecked the African American communities in this country.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if anybody can prove that it was planned, but it seems that's how the government keeps control. I don't know. I was in prison, right? So I got like prison is like a microcosm of the world in a lot of aspects. So you see how they do stuff there, and it's a scarcity resources, and they pit people against each other. Either on geographical or ethnic or color lines or whatever. And really, they do the same thing out here, man. It's
right.
just.
I mean, think about Crips and Bloods, or even like the Hells Angels versus the Pagans or whatever.
I mean, Republicans, Democrats.
Yeah, exactly.
Christians, Muslims.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, that's how they maintain control. So, you got to think about it. If you're trying to maintain control like that way, sometimes you have to sow some type of dissension.
Yep. Totally. And what's legal and what's not legal? that's how I became kind of an outlaw mindset, even though I was never like, going crazy, but just because I used cannabis, because, I was a jock and had cancer and a bad back, and it was a lifesaver for me. It was either that or alcohol or pills, and I couldn't do that. So it's like the whole cannabis thing being illegal was so ridiculous to me. That exactly what you're talking about, Seth.
Yeah.
How many times was I paranoid? Just smoking a joint, just worried the cops would come, looking out the window. Like I remember the one night the cops came. I was a Fidelity employee back in the day. Me and one of the stockbrokers were smoking in our little rental, and the people who had lived there before us were some type of criminals. So the cops came with a warrant, and we're like, we don't know these people. We're the new renters. Like, what the hell? And he's like, you better put that out. It's like, really? It's in our house. Like. It was like we thought we were going to jail that night. It's so many times like that, just for a little bit of cannabis. It's a different world in like Massachusetts today. Like we don't worry about that anymore, thank God. But I've seen so many people get busted for stupid shit like that. Even like,
just the war on drugs, it ruined lives, man. It ruined lives. I mean, being incarcerated, what that does to you and to your family, your loved ones, if you have kids, and then financially, it just ruins you. I mean, it's just terrible. And look, I was in prison, man. There's people that deserve to be in prison, but when you're talking about like real evil psychopath people, I mean, it's not a high percentage, man. Even in prison, like 2-3%. Yeah, 2-3%. They're psychopaths. They have no redeeming qualities. But victimless crimes. I mean, if you got a gun and you think you can get money and that's how you want to live and you want to be violent and stuff like that, all right, there's a place for you, prison. But I mean, most of the people in the drug war were entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They were just dealing with, unregulated, unlicensed, illegal substances.
And it happened a lot. I mean, there's so many people who got jailed for just a little bit of weed, not much. Like today, it wouldn't be anything. And it's crazy. Guerrilla.
And when you think about it, some of these grows in California, right? Like there's this real big one in LA. It's called Glass House, right? It's ran by an ex-cop or DEA, an ex-judge or prosecutor or something, right? They grow and you can look this up. This is on like the internet. They have to report this. They grow 1.2 million pounds a year.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And they're caught.
And they even laugh about it on social media. They laugh about it.
Yeah.
They say, man, we grow more a year than all the people we ever busted put together.
Yeah.
telling you, man, it's insane. It's
Do you
just
remember?
crazy.
Do you remember the guy Barry Cooper who used to tell you like he was an ex-cop that busted everyone and then told everyone how to evade the police?
Yeah.
I wonder if he's selling weed now. Is he selling weed too? Like, I swear to God,
I
so
don't
many
know.
ex-cops are selling weed now. It's true. Like every dispensary has a safety plan. So guess who usually runs the safety plan and usually is a partner?
Oh yeah, it's ex-cops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tons of them.
They're all getting money from the marijuana game now.
Yeah. It's a different world. So tell us about, okay, so guerrillaconvict.com. We link that up. We also
That's
have
my
your
publishing house. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
publishing house. I probably got like 25 books.
Tell us about some
if
of the
anybody-
books. What are some of the books on there?
My most popular ones, the prison stories, which is kind of autobiographical. My first 2 years in prison, I wrote it as fiction. I got this other book called The Supreme Team, which is
Oh,
about
yeah.
the Supreme Team from Jamaica, Queens, New York.
They're
That's probably my
big into
most
hip-hop.
popular book.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Supreme. I think one of the
Puffy,
guys, Prince.
Yeah.
Prince just came home. Supreme's still locked up for murder for hire, but Prince just came home. A lot of the other guys came home. They did a lot of time, though, like 20, 25, 30 years. And then my newest book I had, it's called Thug Life. It's where organized crime meets hip hop.
Is that about Tupac at all?
Yeah, I got a Tupac in there. Yeah, see, there's
there
a
it
book.
is.
So there goes Thug Life. And then I got that prison basketball about that guy Ron Jordan I was talking about. I got the prison stories too.
And you also got comics. Wow, you got Supreme Team.
Yeah, I
comics.
did some crime comics when I first got out. I tried some crime comics.
Oh, and here's your let's put this one up. This
Yeah,
is
that's
your
my most wanted poster.
and you could use
So
it
that's
as
like
blotter
on we put that on blotter paper, yeah.
ad. This is classic. You got to put this on some t-shirts, I think.
Yeah. No, that looks cool. That's my wanted poster. So
Yeah.
that was me. That was me like at 20, the kid.
And this with some of these stories that like the prison stories and even like the thug life stuff and especially the Supreme Team. Do you get any pushback? Like, because a lot of people like look at some of this stuff as like dry snitching, but then other people are like, no, it's okay to put out now. It's enough time's gone by. We can tell the stories. How do you deal with that stuff?
So I mean, you got to think too. I wrote this stuff while I was in prison, man, with these people. So look, like I had to let the people read it. I kind of had to get their blessing. It wasn't just like some, I'm just trying to exploit, this story or these people or whatever. Like they would interview me. I would do these pieces, they would help me craft them. But, what I was trying to do is, the government, the media, and prosecutors would have you think everything is black and white, like here or there. I'm not talking about color, but in anything, any type of case, there's a lot of gray area, and the gray area is the human area. I'm not saying there's some super evil people, like Jeffrey Dahmer and people like that. I mean, they're evil, but they're like 2-3%.
Exactly.
And most people are kind of in that gray area. So I was trying to humanize these people, but also at the same time, I kind of romanticize it. I had the hip hop thing, but think about it. I couldn't afford to misquote anybody in there. What do you think would have happened to me if I misquoted somebody?
Yeah. You got to check. So you got to double check it. Yeah, do you have to double check with them? Like, because I
would let them read it. I would
get
get their blessing. I came up in a different school of journalism. But yeah, once I started writing and it was good, like the people in there were my main audience anyhow.
Exactly. They're the ones who knows the most about it, the ones that love it the most. So
yeah. So look, like in prison, all my book, because you got to think too, one book gets sent in prison and like 100 people might read it.
I
So
bet.
like everybody in prison, especially in the feds on the East Coast, know my work. But I would say people in like prison almost all over a lot know my work, if they're into that type of stuff. But on the outside, a lot of hip hop people, a lot of true crime people, like my books. But I just see the films. I always wanted to do the films, coming out. I wanted to, that was kind of like my dream. The first big thing, a professional I did, Sean Wreck, White Boy, which we talked about. And then I moved on to the other stuff. I did Nightlife. That was really my first film. Then I did Dope Man, which is about the mafia and how the American mafia formed the first drug cartel before prohibition even in it. It looks like a Lucky Luciano, Jack Lake's Diamond, and also shows parallelly how the predecessor to the DEA was formed before prohibition ended by this cop crusader named Harry Anslinger. But yeah, Psychedelic Revolution. That was my third film, and the newest film I got out is called A Tortured Mind: The Realities of Post-Incarceration Syndrome.
Well, that's gonna be a tough one because
Yeah, I don't know if it's on there. It's on Amazon.
it's on
It's on
Amazon.
Amazon
Right?
and Tubi, yeah. And then I got more stuff. I got this other one called Tangled Roots. Like this one right here, Tangled Roots is coming out. At least the first episode. But I'm a small independent studio, man. So, it's a struggle, but we make this stuff because we like this stuff and we believe in it, and this is the type of stuff that we would want to watch or read.
That's what you should. I always say to people, cover what you love. That's it. If you're gonna do this stuff, just make sure you like it.
Yeah, but that's why that's why I say I got Outlaw Films. I call myself the Outlaw filmmaker. I mean, I can say sometimes I need to worry more about the films and less on the outlaw stuff, but I mean, that's life.
And you've recently had some trouble. Vice again picked up the story about some trouble you got into. What's going on? Are you in real trouble here or not?
I mean, I got pulled over in Nebraska. I mean, the statute is 0 to 20, but the first number is 0, so that's important. And it is weed, so like I say, we're gonna go through the process. We're gonna see what happens. I mean, it would be a shame if I have to go to jail for a nonviolent weed charge in this day and age. I mean, that would be something that I think might draw national attention that people could rally behind. Because I mean, they're still doing it, man. You know what I'm saying? So something needs to change because you can get caught with 1,000 pounds in California and it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And you get caught with a couple hundred in Nebraska and it's a felony and they're trying to put you in prison. And like I say, in the context that you got one grow in LA that is growing 1.2 million pounds a year. That's just one grow in California. There's grows everywhere all over the United States now. Nebraska just voted medical marijuana on November 4th on election day when I was in. So, but it's also true that the county I was in, Seward County, they're notorious for, corruption, illegal search and seizures, illegal stops. They're one of those counties that still, they go by that 90s, sheriff's DEA, trademark where it's all about civil asset forfeiture.
Yep.
And then you got to think about it too. Think from a law enforcement perspective. Most people, I'm not saying all people, but I would say the majority of people, they're taking the path of least resistance in their job. They're doing the bare minimum. They don't want any problems, whatever. So think about this, and this has always held true since the 80s. If you're in law enforcement, are you going to bust the cartel, gangbanger that has guns, drug addicted, violent meth fiend with guns?
No.
Are you going to bust them or are you going to bust the pot smoking hippie? You get the credit. You get the same credit for either bust.
Yeah. And who
the same credit.
And who shows up and pays the fines and doesn't create a big fuss.
So I'm just saying,
yeah,
I'm not blaming the cops, but I'm saying, look at what it really is. So why do you got all these little sheriff departments that they follow this war on drugs? Everybody followed in the 90s, so whatever. But nobody else is following that model anymore. Why are you still following this model? And the bigger question is, how are the state authorities or senators or whatever, how are they letting them get away with it? I mean, I thought, big marijuana are making marijuana a big deal and all this civil asset forfeiture. I thought that was like a thing of the past from the drug world. I thought we moved past that. But obviously some of these places, and like I say, this Seward County in Nebraska, where I got pulled over, and where I got stopped illegally, and some like Kansas counties. I mean, this is what they do, man. They're still like they're stuck.
Still
like
looking
move
for it.
forward, find a different way to get your money than, ruining people's lives for victimless, crimes for something that should be decriminalized and unregulated and unlicensed.
Is there anything that people can do to help you out on this?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, write Stewart County, right? The Stewart County, the judge, the prosecutor, my pretrial's February 6th. Come to the court. It's Seward County Justice Center. Follow my story online. Follow me on Instagram. Following me Facebook. Look for my updates. Write letters. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a firm believer that it should be we the people. I mean, obviously a lot of times it's not, but I don't think even if they did convict me, which they still have to do, and put me in prison. I mean, I think any reasonable person would say, it's a waste of money. It's a waste of time because obviously this is not what I do. I got all these films out. I do, what is possible? How do I got all these films out? And if you're trying to say I'm this or I'm that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I want you to do. I want
Obviously,
you to
you can
continue to
see
create
what
it.
I'm putting my time and effort into.
Yeah.
It's representative,
Yep.
But we'll see. I'm gonna fight it. I'm gonna go to trial. We're gonna fight it. We're gonna try to get it thrown out. So we'll see what happens. And we're making a documentary about it too. So we're gonna make a documentary about my story in real time. We're gonna do all the filming and the interviews, and then we'll get the outcome. But we're also gonna shine a light on Seward County, and because literally, if you Google Seward County, like illegal search and seizure, like hundreds of articles and exposés and like video pieces, like they had big lawsuits against them like several years ago. It's just like crazy. So like, how is this all? It's been pointed out for 5-10 years or longer what this county is doing. How are they still being allowed to do it?
Sucks,
They're
man.
profiling,
Yeah,
and pulling people over.
ruining lives too. You're
based on guesswork and hunches, not police work.
Man, I hope the best for you on that. Definitely, we're gonna continue to watch it, follow it. Hopefully,
Yeah, no, definitely.
I wonder if the hearings we can get some kind of. I wonder if they broadcast them at all. I'd love to stream those.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't know.
Probably
I gotta have my camera people. We're gonna call up to see what kind of camera access. We might only be able to film outside.
yeah. If you find out
Okay.
there's any type of live feed at all, let me know because I will
Yeah.
definitely stream that on here. And I just, I mean, we don't want anything bad to happen to you here. I've been following you for a while, and you're so like positive. You come out of jail, and you get all these movies and books, and you're doing good things, and you're an inspiration, I think, to a lot of people who have been in prison, like coming out. It's the hardest thing not to go back there. Why is it so hard? And what could be like? What could America do to change that?
I don't know, man. I try to, like, when you do 21 years in prison, like prison is a real negative place. It's like basically like think of people like they kind of do the same thing in the world, but in prison it's just more obvious. Like they literally step on other people to prop themselves up. I would say the world's kind of like that too, but prison is just more it's more brutal, it's more raw. So in there I tried to stay positive. You gotta be positive, man, because if you give it's negative, you're all around you. So that's where I think I kind of developed that. And yeah, still to this day, I mean, it's a tough world. Nothing's easy. I've had my knocks and I've had my successes, but I just, I continue to get up, and I continue to fight, and I'm gonna continue to be me, and I'm gonna, you always hear that expression, right? Like, is the cup half empty or is the cup half full? I'm an optimist, so to me, the cup is half full.
That'll take you a long way in life being positive because I sometimes I'm negative, sometimes I'm positive, and the outcomes are so different when you're positive. It's true. There's no doubt about it.
And I believe in manifestation too. So I believe that you put out there what you want to do, you put out there what you're trying to do, and you say it and you go towards it, and you fight for it. I believe like in humanity, like individuals, like we're our own worst enemies because everything in the outworld world we create in the inworld world, and then we go to the outward world. So, if we're killing ourselves and being negative and talking negative self-talk and stuff like that, what do you think the outside world is going to be like for us?
Yeah, it brings me
So I'm,
back
I'm
to
a
the
big believer.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a big
yeah.
believer in that.
And it brings me back to the psychedelics thing too, because that's like so funny now that they're using ketamine and MD, they're using all these drugs now for real doctors. They want to use these drugs, and when bad things happen to people, horrific events, they get a lot of times they get prescribed these, the microdosing. That there's definitely a movement here, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's from inside our heads means so much about what we create out there. So I mean, there's definitely something to it. We get a question here. It's one of our moderators. She says, Seth, do you have a favorite book that you wrote or you recommend people start with?
I would say Supreme Team or Prison Stories. Those are my two most popular books. Prison Stories was my first. Supreme Team was probably like my fourth or fifth. But then I got a new recent one too, Thug Life. It's actually hardback. So I got that one too. But I'd say, a lot of people like Prison Stories and Supreme Team, both people say they're classics.
Perfect. And we're scrolling. These are the books right here, right?
No, the books are go up,
Go up. I'm
go
missing
back
them.
up. Yeah.
Maybe I went
Oh,
through.
you probably
I went through a screen. Here we go. Let's find them. Here we go.
there's the books right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Thug Life. Thug Life is a good book. That's my newest book, hardback. And if anybody orders books, I'll autograph them. You just tell me who you want it to.
Excellent. I get some reading to do. I'm glad.
But all
that
my
was a good
stuff's on
question.
Amazon too. I got Audible books too on Amazon, on Audible. I got a lot of stuff out there. I stay
Definitely.
pretty busy.
It's awesome to see that you've done so much. And that's the other thing too. Besides being positive, you actually have to act, which you've done. You've done the work. It's amazing how prolific you've been with all the books and projects.
I'm
that
just a
you've worked
maniac,
on.
man. I'm a maniac.
Yeah, you love it though. I mean, I could tell. I could tell you love this shit, don't you?
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah. Do you want to? Sometimes we take phone calls. We could see if if anyone has a question. Do you want to stick around for a couple more minutes? We're over an hour and 5 minutes at this point.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Let's see if it works. 978-560-3155. I do have to set it up. It usually takes a few minutes before people catch up on the live stream. A lot of times people are behind and they call later. Don't call me at midnight, though. Hold on one second. We're going to turn it on. Anything else that we haven't talked about tonight that you wanted to promote or talk about or discuss? Turn it on. Anything else that we haven't talked about tonight that you wanted to? Oh, sorry. A little feedback.
Yeah, if just my films, man. If you like, that kind of true crimey, drug, counterculture, my stuff is real high production value. I get amazing access. So, all my films are on Amazon. You can rent them, and they're on Tubi. You can watch them with ads.
Sorry, I kicked myself out trying to go back on the screen here with your info. I'm sure you promoted some more of your movies.
Yeah, I was talking about the movies you can get on Amazon and Tubi. If you like the cool counterculture, drug, true crime type of stuff.
Perfect. I'm gonna put that back on the screen. I'm trying. That's exactly what I was trying to do, is find the movies too. Kind of post those up. Here we go. And again, if anyone wants,
I got a YouTube channel too where I put different stuff up. We got like some mini docs, different stuff from my books, that we visualized and made little videos of.
Yeah, what is that? It's Seth Ferranti, True Crime. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Seth Ferranti's True Crime on YouTube.
I'm gonna bring that up too.
Yeah, and I got more stuff coming out this year. Like I got the Tangled Roots. I got this other one I'm working on, For the Love of God, about a enforcer, mafia enforcer who found Christ in prison. I got another one called Who Murdered Les Crane, about a 20-year-old unsolved murder mystery set in Mendocino County in the Emerald Triangle in cannabis land.
Oh wow, that sounds like
Yeah.
fun. Are you? Do you have a lot of? Have you spent a lot of time in that area?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time up there.
Yeah, I heard it's kind of. It can be a little scary. I don't know. Is it true? I mean, is it?
I mean, it's the people, I mean, I mean, when you go back on these farms, some of these farms are like, they're like 20 miles off the pavement. You
Yeah.
got to go. It might take you like an hour and a half, 2 hours to drive that 20 miles up these dirt roads, and like you might be going straight up sometimes. Like it can get crazy, but as long as the people you're going to see are good people,
Definitely.
So that's they had this Murder Mountain on Netflix. They kind of portrayed that area in a bad light, and I didn't like the real. I felt like it was kind of like clickbait. I mean, I
Yeah.
watched it,
I
but
watched it too.
I wanted to portray the people in Tangled Roots. I'm portraying. This is kind of like my love letter to Humboldt County. I want to portray the people, the multi-generational legacy farm operators. I mean, they got people up there, they went up there in the 60s, and now, their kids farmed, and now their grandkids farm, might farm legally. So, that's kind of the story that we tell, and Tangled Roots goes all the way through from the homesteaders in the 60s and 70s to the helicopters, and when Humboldt Bud blew up in the 80s, to the green rush when medical took over in the early 2000s, and then to legalization. That's going to be the 4th episode in 2016, and how really legalization put a lot of these small-time legacy operators out of business.
Yeah, especially the ones
because
that
cannabis
legal,
went the
right?
way of the tomato.
Yeah.
They were getting like in the illegal, in the traditional market, they were getting like $4,000 or $5,000 a pound for stuff that's you can barely get $400 or $500 for now. I'm telling you, like literally 5 years.
Yeah. And then it costs so much more for them to be in business too, with all the regulations.
Yeah,
and
with all the taxes. Yeah.
It just sucks. And the weed used to be like, it's so funny being an East Coast guy. Like we would get the Cali packs in, and we even the stuff that they would be like, this is just like the reg from California. It'd be like way better than
Yeah.
It was always the best shit.
I mean, I grew up smoking brick pot, man. So
right.
When we were getting the con bud, the Northern Lights and stuff like that from Cali, that stuff was fire. I mean, now, I mean, they took it to a whole nother level, but I still like that greenhouse outdoor bud from California, man. It tastes good. The terps are good. It smokes like it tastes. I'm more like a taste guy for weed. I'm not like, I don't want something that's going to put me in the couch.
Yeah. No, it's all about the taste. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like everything. It's funny.
Yeah, I always tell people that area.
Yeah.
I tell people that area. It's kind of like the Napa Valley of cannabis.
It is definitely the sun and the soil. It's and the ocean breeze. I mean, you can't.
Yeah. The conditions. It can go from like 45, 50 at night to like 110 during the day. So those conditions, really, bring out the terps in the plant.
Exactly. We have that, except we have all this humidity, like for like a month in September, October, and that's it. It's like yeah, it's funny. Our outdoor does not measure up. It's no doubt about it. East Coast, it's never like that. It's never like that California outdoor. Can't compete.
No.
Yeah.
No, I still prefer that. I prefer it to this day.
Yeah, me too.
I prefer it from that specific region, like Humboldt or Mendocino.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's just better.
And you can grow it like all year round, I guess, too, right? Isn't that true? You can
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, they have like they just grow from like May. No, they can't grow in the winter because they're up in the mountains a little bit.
All right.
But they're I think they're maybe like 3,000 feet. You know, a
So
lot of
they
those
so they
3,000,
have
4,000
they
feet.
have a one season like we do too. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I was
but they do
wondering
the
about that.
greenhouse. So the greenhouse, they usually do 2 runs.
Ah, see,
They do like a May to
that's right.
July,
The hoop and
and
the
then like a July to September.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
what they
wild.
call
I
like the
someday I
depths.
want to
What
get
they
out
call the
there.
light depths now. They
Yeah,
call that the light depths now.
yeah, definitely. This has been fun. I really enjoyed this, and we're not getting any calls tonight. I don't know if no one has a question for Seth, but if you do want to call, this is your last call for it, 978-560-3155. But we get a lot of people in the chat who are subbing, which is much appreciated. They're subbing to Seth's channel. We got it up there,
Thank
the
you.
YouTube channel up at the top of the chat. Please like and subscribe to the video tonight, and make sure you subscribe to Seth. He's also got we posted his books. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a Facebook page. He's on Instagram. Any other places? I know there must be. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, just social media. I mean, I kind of do it all. You know, Amazon, Tubi. You know, I think my stuff's like on Apple TV. I think pretty much the films you can find anywhere. You know, sometimes you might just have to pay a rental fee or something. But yeah, if you watch the films and you like it, man, leave a review. You know, reviews are big for independent filmmakers. You leave a review on Amazon, you know, Rotten Tomato, if you like what you see, and then, you know, check them all out and check with the stuff I got coming out this year.
And you're also, I just remembered, you're on X and Twitter because we saw you there today.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of
I'm on
Twitter
Twitter.
follows. Yeah, follow Seth on Twitter too. And like you said, give him some reviews. Help him out. Help him out. He's put a lot of good content.
No, if you like this stuff,
Yeah.
I believe the work speaks for itself. You know, I don't need it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't ask nobody, you know, if watch it, if you like it, if that's what you're interested in. You know, I mean, what I do is not for everybody. But you know, if that's what you're into, if that's what you're interested in, I mean, definitely check it out. Very well made, very well crafted. You will be impressed.
And one of my friends just said he was watching last night the psychedelic revolution movie. He was just watching
Okay.
it last night when he found out you were on the show tonight. So people
All right, awesome.
like that's been out for a while, right? And people still watching it.
Yeah, yeah, it came out probably a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that's great. And
Yeah, the type of stuff I do, it has like a pretty long shelf life because there's always new people getting into, like, you know, the true crime type of stuff,
yeah.
you know.
Here's a question for you that came in. They want to know, did they know who you were before they stopped you? The Nebraska police there.
No, but they knew who I was before they searched me.
Ooh. That could help,
You know,
right? Maybe?
because once they got my license, you know, then they ran me, and then all of a sudden, oh, we smell marijuana.
Mm.
You know, but that's just, you know, they do that for anything. If they want to search you, if they have any type of hunch, you know, or suspicion or whatever. But, you know, I mean, you can't pull somebody over for nothing. You know, that's illegal. You know, and if the stop's illegal, then the search is illegal.
Hopefully you get hopefully this gets dismissed pretty quickly.
Oh no, we're gonna fight, man. Ready to fight. Like I say, I'm a fighter, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go down swinging. I'm not saying I can't get knocked out, but I'm gonna go down swinging.
I hope so. I hope you don't get knocked out though. I hope you win this because
A lot of
you've
people
already
tried. A lot of
suffered
people
enough.
tried.
You know, they
I already
put you in
took.
jail at
I already took
20.
the big blow. I
Yeah.
took the big blow already, and I'm still good. So I don't think nothing else is gonna knock me out.
Yeah, you are
If that
so
didn't, if that
positive.
didn't knock me out, if that 25 didn't knock me out, and I still did everything I have done, and still doing, I don't think they're not gonna get me.
I hope not. I really appreciate you spending time with us, and I hope you keep us updated throughout this and any other movies you got coming out. I'd love to have you back
No,
on.
I'll let you know. Definitely,
Definitely.
man.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man. Keep
I
doing what
really
you're doing.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Thank you, Seth. That's Seth Ferranti again. You can check out his movies, his books, GorillaConvict.com. All his movies, again, are on Amazon. Psychedelic Revolution, The Secret History of the LSD Trade. White Boy was on Netflix. I love that movie. Check him out. He's on YouTube. We got his YouTube up right now. Please subscribe there. He's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're also posting that. Thank you again so much tonight. Seth Ferranti, outlaw filmmaker, author, and journalist. Thank you again, Seth. Have a great night.
All right, you too. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
We're the Young Jerks. Thank you guys all for watching. I know there's a lot of other things going on tonight, and I love my Jerks fans who are here no matter what. I no matter if we have like 5,000 people watching or what, like a couple hundred tonight. I love you guys who are the most loyal, who are always here. Thank you so much. Without you, there is no show. I'm telling you. I want to thank our moderators, Sarah, MJ. I want to thank Stephanie and Scott McGinnis. Did I miss someone? Jen. We got 5 moderators. I love all of our moderators. Thank you so much to the mods. Thank you for posting all the links. Thank you to Seth Ferranti for being here tonight. Thank you for the super chats. We got a new one, OnlyFan. Let me read that. Hold on one second. OnlyFan says, fast exit. Thanks, Mike and Seth. Amazing mods and chat. And what else do I got here? Thank you so much, OnlyFan. And I also want to thank Sarah and Shock and Hura, a moderator tonight, for asking a great question. I want to thank Sherry D, who gifted just now some Young Jerks memberships. Wednesday night, we're going to be live with Mass State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, 6 p.m. I hope to see you all there. Please like and subscribe. Follow us. Hit the notification for Wednesday night. Wicked good news today. It was great to see that Dr. Marie Russell is going to be a witness at the Karen Reed trial. Judge Cannoni did not kick it out. Very exciting news. I'm going to head out. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, ladies. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon.